Greetings and welcome back to Wolf Cage, Los Angeles. We've got a lot to talk about today, so let's go.
That's a guy who, if he runs, he's got a lot to defend in California. If you look at quality of life issues there, man, he's
a good fighter, though.
He's really good fighter on TV. He's really good debater, but he's got a really big pile of problems back in California.
Have you ever noticed how they always call Gavin Newsom a good fighter or some sort of a strong debater? Now, that only works if you don't already know the truth. Like I'm sure you do. And I do, because if you do know the truth, it's plain as day. This man is just a well-dressed liar. California's problems are not subtle. They're not hidden in a policy memo or economic charts. They're right in your face. Tent cities stretching for blocks, sidewalks stained by addiction, businesses boarded up. We're talking about a state with the highest cost of living. Sky-high rates and still somehow rampant unemployment, over 170,000 homeless, and more than 2 million illegal immigrants straining every system we've got. Now, they want us to believe it's mismanagement, but no one, and I mean no one, is this bad by accident. When the most naturally beautiful state in the nation, arguably the world, is running to the ground this hard, it's intentional. It's not leadership, it's criminal. Newsom hasn't kept a single promise. He sold California to the highest bidder, to lobbyists, to unions, to developers, to foreign investors like China. Fires tore through the Palisades in Altadena, homes lost, lives upended. No rebuilding plan. But here comes Newsom rolling out low-income housing like it's a charity move. No, it's a land grab. It's a sweetheart deal for donors. And while Californians suffer, where is he? He's out in South Carolina. He's out in South Carolina buttering up early primary voters for his next big gig. This is not mismanagement. It's purposeful. It's program corruption. And until people unplug from the Hollywood gaslighting, until people unplug from the DNC slogans, this disaster will just keep unfolding. Now, let's hear from someone who's actually trying to save California. Here's Steve Hinton, a Republican running for governor. Take a listen to what he has to say about this.
What has Gavin Newsom done in the last 6 months? He's presided over the continuing increase of gas prices, the highest in the country. He's totally failed to respond in the way that he promised to this wildfire disaster. He promised a Marshall Plan to recover and rebuild LA. Instead, you walk around here, you see this community still devastated, debris everywhere. It's a total disaster. He's totally failed on every...
Well, here's the real gag. Newsom hasn't failed at anything. No, it's obvious to see this was the plan all along. If it weren't, wouldn't you see some effort to course correct? But instead of putting out fires, he's out here pouring gasoline on it. Let's look at the facts. Gas prices in California are the highest in the nation, hovering well over $6 in many counties. And what is Newsom doing? Pushing policies that restrict supply and raise costs, taxes, already brutal, but instead of cutting waste, he's cooking up new ways to nickel and dime working people. This, again, is not mismanagement. It's strategy. Then there's Title IX, meant to protect female athletes. Newsom refuses to uphold it. Why? Because gender politics and what he thinks it will do for his career matter more than him than protecting girls who have trained their entire lives to compete fairly. That is not equality. That is just exploitation. Then you might ask yourself, in a place where resources are stretched, why would someone keep pushing for illegal immigration? Why? Because it's not really about compassion. Actually, it's not about compassion at all. It's about power. You see, more bodies for the census, more cheap labor for corporate donors, and more votes for his party down the line. Meanwhile, we, the American citizens, what do we get? We get higher taxes. We get crumbling services and excuses wrapped in virtue signals. I want to be absolutely clear. It is not that he is unaware. It's that he does not care about anyone but himself. And anyone paying attention can see it.
All immigrants who are here illegally, 55% the New York Times, Marquette 64%, CBS News 57%, ABC News with a slightly different question 56%. So what you're seeing essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers because they're all essentially the same across 4 different...
You know, this is one of the hardest conversations to have, especially with college friends, but here it is. The Democratic Party does not care about you. Not one bit. They care about their club, their wealth, their social status, and how far they can climb up the ladder. That's it. But they want you to believe that they're lifting you with them. You think it'd be obvious. Just look at their track record. They're consistently pushing policies Americans keep saying they do not want. They ignore the vote, override the will of the people, and they force agendas down our throats that nobody asked for. Parental rights, stripped away and handed to the state. Why? Because government bureaucrats somehow know better than the mother, and they know better than the father. But the question is, since when? And let's talk about money. Why would anybody in their right mind, why would anyone struggling to keep their lights on be expected to fund someone else's rent, healthcare, college, food, while they can barely afford gas and groceries for themselves? This is not the compassion that The View, that MSNBC, that CNN want you to believe it is. This is extortion, masked as progress. See, the truth is, they want dependency, because dependency means control. And too many people are falling for the performance, the slogans, the identity politics without asking the basic question, who really benefits from all of this? Now listen to what Stacey Abrams is saying. Pay close attention because it's not just talk. It's the playbook.
You send the U.S. Marines into spaces they should not be. You send the National Guard in. You kidnap people off of the streets and pretend that's normal, because that's how you quiet dissent, because you make everyone afraid that if they don't do what you want, they might be next. And once you've done those 9 steps, step 10 is easy. That's when you decide there won't be new elections, because everyone's either afraid, poor, broken, or complicit.
Listen, guys, it's imperative to understand one critical truth. Without illegal aliens, the Democratic Party cannot win national elections anymore. And they know it. That's why they're in a full-blown panic. Their power, their pet projects, their bloated nonprofits, the tax schemes, it all hinges on illegal immigration. Without those bodies counted in the census, they lose districts, they lose votes, they lose money. That's why every single Democrat from D.C. to daytime TV says the same exact thing in the same exact way, word for word. It's not a coincidence. It is a script. Now, of course, they call MAGA a cult. But let's be real. They're the ones moving in robotic lockstep. No original thought, no dissent, just groupthink on repeat. And you might ask yourself, well, how do they control the masses? Through fear. Fear is their number one tactic. They lie to you. They twist facts, or they push predictions that never happen, all to make you afraid. Afraid to speak up, afraid to vote against them, afraid to think for yourself. And while they push this fear, they radicalize people behind the scenes. Now we have a Democrat running for city council in San Antonio who openly called for the death of ICE agents. That's not politics. That's loco. That's domestic terrorism. This party doesn't just have a different worldview. No, it has a deranged one. Everything is upside down. Even Chris Cuomo is starting to notice the cracks. Take a look at this.
If you're on the left, you just had 10 young people try to kill ICE officers because their policies suck, because the way they're doing it is wrong. And this is something you want to get behind and say, yeah, well, but what? What are you, nuts? If you want to have a fight, I'm here for it. Okay? Because these fringe people on either side, you want somebody to take you on, I'm here for it, because you're killing us with your crazy.
We've got California Senator Alex Padilla, desperate to go viral, desperate to cling to power, pushing a bill that would unmask ICE agents. That's right. He wants to force federal immigration officers to wear visible ID badges on the job, in the field, while dealing with violent criminals and cartel operations. Why would someone do something like that? Could it be that they want them to be doxxed? Could it be that they want them to be stalked so they can be targeted by mobs who have been fed nonstop propaganda and gaslighting by the Democrats? And here's the kicker. These are the same people who don't want you to show your ID to vote. Let that sink in. They want border agents exposed, but they don't want a simple check to confirm someone is even a citizen before casting a ballot in a United States of America election. Why would any politician want someone to be able to vote in a USA election that's not a USA citizen other than to cheat? Remember, these are the same Democrats who force you to wear a mask alone in your car, at the beach, while walking your dog, even though dozens of peer-reviewed studies have always shown cloth masks never stop the spread of anything. It was never about safety. It was a test to see if you would obey something that made 0 sense whatsoever, just because they told you to. And the scary part is millions did. These people are not just out of touch. They're unhinged. Let's see what President Trump had to say about this madness.
And it's sort of funny when people picket in front of Columbia, in front of Harvard, and they have masks on, more than masks. I mean, you can't see anything. Nobody complains about that. But when a patriot who works for ICE or Border Patrol puts a mask on so that they won't recognize him and his family, so they can lead a little bit of a normal life after having worked so hard and so dangerously.
Now, mind you, deportations of illegal aliens have been happening for decades. That is nothing new. The only difference now is Democrats finally realize that if these people actually get deported, they lose everything. They lose power, they lose votes, they lose census numbers, they lose political funding, even their nonprofit grift dries up. And here's the real kicker. When Obama was deporting record numbers of people, crickets, not a peep from the media. But now, the media's marching orders are so clear. Radicalize the public. Turn citizens against the government for simply enforcing the law. We have to be very real and very clear about this. These are not immigrants. They are illegal immigrants. And that difference matters. No other country in the world tolerates open borders and mass law breaking like this. But the Democrats will do anything to protect their system of control. They will lie. They will deflect. They will break laws. They will even gaslight you into believing they're doing it all for you. But it's not for you. It's for them. Always has been. And now, California Democrats are suing the Trump administration in federal court, claiming ICE agents are using excessive force and, of course, racial profiling. Why? Because they're actually doing their jobs, especially here in LA. And meanwhile, Karen Bass, who should be out here tackling the homeless crisis, who should be out here fixing our streets, making our neighborhoods safe, getting rent under control, is out here defending people who aren't even citizens. This woman is not unqualified. No, she is evil.
It is critical that we use every single venue, every single possibility of seeking justice, and that's what we're doing today. And I do hope that the courts especially issue this injunction and stop this.
I cannot stress this enough. The level of deception coming from the Democratic Party is unlike anything I've ever seen in modern politics. The lengths they will go to hold on to power. It's not just unethical, it's pure evil. Now, as expected, they're doing what they always do. Their number one scapegoat. They're trying to pin the blame on Trump. This time, what are they talking about? It's the tragic deaths in Texas. No facts, no real accountability, just another chance to use Trump as a political scapegoat. You know, let's be honest. This is their entire playbook. Anything that goes wrong, whether it's at the border, whether it's in the economy, even a flood zone, they always find a way to say it's Trump's fault, even when they were the ones in charge, even when they signed the orders or ignored the warnings. It's sick, it's manipulative, and the sad part is Millions of people fall for it because the media amplifies the narrative 24/7. And you'll see that's exactly what Chris was talking about. When even voices from the left start calling it out, you know the charade is cracking.
Democratic Senator Chris Murphy, I've been trying to get him on the show. Now I don't want him. Accurate weather forecasting helps avoid fatal disasters. That's what you say? There are consequences to attacking meteorologists? You really believe that that's what this was about? You really think that's what your constituents want? For you to take a cheap shot at dead kids to score points against Trump? Wow. And guess what? The Union for the National Weather Service, and they've been critical of Trump's cuts, and I'm not saying there's not reason for criticism, but it's about perspective. The union says there was adequate staff at the time in Texas, and meteorologists are not faulting the National Weather Service. They're noting that they began to escalate the flood warnings as much as 12 hours in advance of the floods. So shut up, Murphy.
Another thing I hate the most is by the time the general public hears something like what Chris just said, it's already too late. The damage is done. The idea has already been planted like a seed, and with enough repetition, it grows until people start believing it without even questioning where it came from. Because you have to understand, the Democratic Party isn't just politicians in suits on Capitol Hill. No, the media is the Democratic Party. CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, Twitter employees, Netflix producers, Disney executives, they're all marching in sync, selling you the same packaged narrative. They want you to believe that wrong is right, and that right, especially if it has anything to do with Trump, is automatically wrong. Remember when they said they wouldn't trust the vaccine if it came from Trump's administration? Then, ironically, when Biden took office, they didn't just roll up their sleeves. They demanded you do the same. They flipped the script overnight and acted like nothing happened. Now you might wonder, how do they get away with this? Why don't any of them go to jail? It's because the game is rigged. Judges, attorneys, media heads, many of them are all paid off, protected, or just a part of the same liberal machine. But there's one thing that still cuts through all of it. Truth. That's the weapon they can't control. Now take a look at this next clip. Abby Phillips on CNN, another disappointing figure, out here defending nonsense for a paycheck. This is ridiculous. Check it out.
Clearly, there are some things where spending money saves lives. And it may not save lives in the moment that you spend it, but at some point, somebody's life, somebody's child could have been saved.
Well, I think something that gets lost in this is the DOGE cuts have actually not taken effect. They don't take effect until October 1st. And if you talk to the National Weather Service, they say we had 5 staffers instead of the normal 2 that were on hand. We were giving alerts on Thursday warning about this. You talked to the union head of the National Weather Service staffers and said, yeah, we did every single thing we could possibly do.
Now, as you can see in the last clip, Abby Phillips has absolutely no idea what she's talking about. But did that stop her from saying it loud and proud on national television? Of course not. And see, the real danger is if there's no one out there, or if there was no one out there to challenge her, people would believe it. And I suspect people still already do, because they've turned her into something she's not. They call her a journalist, but she's not a journalist. She's a paid propagandist. A polished spokesperson for a political machine that doesn't care about facts, just feelings, just narrative, and most of all, control over you. Now, here's what she should be talking about, but of course she won't, because it doesn't fit the agenda. The Austin Fire Chief, Joe G. Baker, just refused to pre-deploy rescue teams to Caryville before the storm hit. And what is his excuse? Budget concerns? That's not just negligence. That's criminal indifference. Lives were at risk. He knew that. And he let the storm roll in with no preparation. But does that sound familiar? Because that's straight out of Karen Bass's playbook. Delay, deflect, and then, of course, blame someone else. And to cut from the same cloth. Ineffective leaders, so-called leaders, who care more about politics, who care more about optics than outcomes. Check this out.
I just don't even have words. Our firefighters are trained for that area. Our firefighters have the equipment. They have the desire. They have the will. They have the power. to go up and actually, I know some of those girls could have been survived if we had had the best boat crew the day before on scene. I know it. I know it in my heart. I know it as a battalion chief. I know it as a former Swiftwater tech myself. And the fact that we didn't do it and we let them down is just, it's unconscious.
That's crazy. Now, of course, because the fire chief is black, you won't hear a word about this from mainstream media, from no one. Because in their twisted logic, if you're black, if you're gay, or if you check one of their so-called marginalized boxes, you're automatically protected from criticism. And it's not because they respect you. It's because they need you. See, the media doesn't support these communities because they care about them. Of course not. They support them, well, pretend to support them because they use them as a political army. They need your voice. They need your votes. They need your blind loyalty to keep them in power. That's all. And for that power, they'll let stores get looted. They'll let cities burn. They'll let people lose everything in floods. They'll let kids suffer jab injuries just to avoid calling someone out in one of their protected groups. And why? Because the second they hold them accountable, the illusion of solidarity breaks, and they cannot risk that. But let me let you in on a little secret. They never liked you to begin with. It was never love. It was leverage. Anyway, I'll cut it here for today, but you already know the headlines don't stop and the lies don't sleep, and the truth is always under attack. You know, I'm Wolf Kage, and this was Wolf Kage Los Angeles. Stay unwoke. And until the next time, peace.